Rome did not begin as an empire. It did not begin with glory, marble temples, or marching legions. It began as a small settlement beside the Tiber River, poor, vulnerable, and surrounded by stronger neighbors. For centuries, Rome was just another village in central Italy, overshadowed by older and more advanced civilizations. There was no guarantee it would survive, let alone dominate the ancient world. And yet, within a few hundred years, Rome would control nearly the entire Mediterranean. This raises an important question. How did a city with such an ordinary beginning rise to become one of history's greatest powers? The answer lies not in one battle or one ruler, but in a system Rome slowly built over time. Rome's location played a quiet but critical role in its survival. The city sat along the Tiber River, which provided fresh water, fertile land, and a natural trade route. At the same time, Rome was far enough inland to avoid sudden attacks from naval enemies, unlike many coastal cities that were easily raided. This balance allowed Rome to grow steadily. It could trade without being constantly exposed to invasion. It could expand farmland and support a growing population. Geography did not make Rome powerful, but it gave Rome time, and time mattered. Many ancient cities were destroyed early in their history. Rome was not. Early Rome was ruled by kings, much like other cities of the ancient world. But instead of remaining a monarchy, Rome took a different path. Around the late 6th century BCE, the Romans overthrew their last king and replaced him with a republic. This was revolutionary. Power was no longer held by one ruler. Instead, it was shared between elected officials, councils, and assemblies. While this system was far from equal or democratic by modern standards, it created something rare in the ancient world: shared political responsibility. Roman citizens were expected to serve the state, especially in times of war. Leadership was temporary, and no one man was supposed to hold power forever. This system reduced internal collapse and encouraged competition based on service, not birth alone. According to Roman tradition, the city of Rome was founded in 753 BCE, a date preserved by later historians such as Livy in Urbe Condita. For its first 2.5 centuries, Rome was ruled by kings, some legendary, others possibly historical. By the late 6th century BCE, Rome was no longer a small village. It had grown into a regional power in central Italy. And with that growth came political tension. Around 509 BCE, the Romans expelled their last king, Lucius Tarquinius Superbus, an event described by both Livy and Dionysius of Halicarnassus. Whether the details are mythologized or not, the outcome is clear. Rome replaced monarchy with a republic. This was highly unusual in the ancient world. Instead of concentrating power in one ruler, Rome distributed authority among elected magistrates, including consuls and advisory bodies like the Senate. Offices were temporary, usually lasting 1 year, and leaders were expected to answer to the law once their term ended. As Polybius later observed in the 2nd century BCE, Rome's strength came from this balance, what he described as a mixture of monarchy, aristocracy, and democracy. While far from equal by modern standards, the system encouraged civic participation and limited absolute power. Rome's military structure developed alongside its political system. In the early Republic, soldiers were citizen farmers, men who fought seasonally and returned home once campaigns ended. This connection between citizenship and military service became a defining feature of Roman expansion. Polybius, writing in the Histories, emphasized that Roman soldiers were motivated not by pay alone, but by duty honor, and the defense of their homeland. Service in the army was tied to political rights and social status. Rome also demonstrated an unusual willingness to adapt militarily. After defeats against neighboring peoples, such as the Samnites in the 4th century BCE, Rome reorganized its army, abandoning rigid formations in favor of more flexible manipulative tactics. Where many ancient armies relied on tradition, Rome treated warfare as a system that could be improved. Each defeat became a lesson, not a catastrophe. By the 4th and 3rd centuries BCE, Rome was expanding rapidly across Italy. What set Rome apart was not just conquest, but integration. Rather than destroying defeated cities, Rome often offered alliances, partial citizenship, or local autonomy. This policy is described in both Livy and later analyzed by Polybius, who saw it as one of Rome's greatest strengths. Former enemies were gradually absorbed into the Roman system. They supplied troops, paid taxes, and benefited from Roman protection. Over time, many were granted full Roman citizenship. This reduced rebellion and created a vast network of loyal communities. Rome did not rule by terror alone, it ruled by incorporation. As Polybius noted, Rome turned its rivals into stakeholders in its success. Rome understood that conquest meant little without administration. In 312 BCE, Rome began constructing the Via Appia, one of the earliest major Roman roads. Over the centuries, thousands of miles of roads followed, allowing legions to move rapidly and trade to flourish. Roman law also expanded alongside territory. While local customs were often respected, Roman legal principles applied broadly, creating a sense of order across vast regions. The historian Cicero, writing in the 1st century BCE, emphasized that Rome's laws, not its armies alone, held the Republic together. Predictability and legal continuity created stability unmatched by most ancient states. Rome was no longer simply winning wars. It was governing space. Rome's rise was not smooth. One of its greatest tests came during the Second Punic War, 218 to 201 BCE. In 216 BCE, at the Battle of Cannae, Rome suffered one of the most devastating defeats in military history. According to Polybius, tens of thousands of Roman soldiers were killed in a single day. Many ancient states would have collapsed after such a disaster. Rome did not. Instead, the Republic refused peace, raised new armies, and altered its strategies. Over the next decade, Rome adapted and eventually defeated Carthage. This persistence, what later writers would call Roman gravitas and disciplina, became a defining trait of Roman power. By the 2nd century BCE, Rome controlled most of the Mediterranean world. It was no longer just a city or even a republic, it was a system. Polybius, who lived in Rome and observed its institutions firsthand, argued that Rome's dominance was not accidental. It was the result of interconnected systems, military discipline, political balance, legal structure, and social integration. Rome's power was built over centuries, not decades. Each generation inherited institutions refined by the last. Rome's rise shows that lasting power is not created by conquest alone. It is created by adaptability, institutions, and the willingness to learn from failure. That is why Rome endured long after its rivals faded, and why its legacy still shapes the modern world. In the next chapter of Rome's history, these same systems would face their greatest test: internal conflict, ambition, and civil war.